6,000 years ago, long before the rise of great civilizations like the Mayans in Central America or the Incans in the Andes, there lived a mysterious group of people in South America. They were hunters and gatherers. They lived off the land, buried their dead, and seemed to vanish completely. For thousands of years, their presence remained hidden. No one even knew they had existed. But now, thanks to new discoveries in ancient DNA, scientists have uncovered an amazing secret. This group of people did not fit into any known family tree of the Americas. They were not related to Native Americans. They were not connected to the early peoples of North or South America. So who were they, and why did they vanish? To understand this mystery, we must travel back even further in time. Around 20,000 years ago, to the last ice age. At that time, massive sheets of ice covered much of North America. Sea levels were much lower than today, and a land bridge called Beringia connected Siberia in Asia to Alaska in North America. This bridge was not icy or frozen. It was a grassy, cold, but livable place filled with animals like mammoths and bison. It became the main route for humans coming from East Asia into the Americas. These early travelers crossed into what is now Alaska around 16,000 years ago. They were the ancestors of Native Americans. Over time, as the glaciers began to melt and the ice retreated, their descendants moved south into the rest of the continent. By about 13,000 years ago, one of the first major cultures, called the Clovis culture, had spread across North America. The Clovis people were known for their special spear points, which were shaped in a unique fluted style. But there's a twist. Recent discoveries like 23,000-year-old human footprints found at White Sands National Park in New Mexico show that people may have arrived in the Americas even earlier than the Clovis culture. That's another mystery for another video. As people moved south through the Americas, they passed through the narrow Isthmus of Panama, a thin strip of land that connects North and South America. This area was like a funnel, forcing all travelers through one path. Eventually, some of these people reached the Bogotá Altiplano, a high flat area in the Andes Mountains of present-day Colombia. At 2,600 meters, 8,500 feet above sea level, this area had rich soils, plenty of water, and lots of wildlife. It was a good place to live, even though the cold mountain air and thin oxygen made life more difficult. People lived here thousands of years before the Inca Empire rose to power. They hunted deer and small animals, fished from rivers, and gathered wild fruits and plants. They didn't have pottery or farming yet. They were purely hunter-gatherers, living off nature. For many years, scientists believed that the first humans to arrive in South America came in one wave from the north. Over time, they believed these people spread out and formed new cultures in different areas. But a new study has changed everything. In a groundbreaking genetic study published in the journal Science Advances, researchers looked at DNA from 21 ancient human remains found in the Bogotá Altiplano. These remains ranged in age from 6,000 years ago to just 500 years ago, shortly before the Spanish arrived. The scientists extracted DNA from bones and teeth, especially a thick part of the skull called the petrous bone, which protects DNA well. What they found shocked them. Among these remains was a group of individuals who lived around 6,000 years ago at a place called the Checua archaeological site. These people were completely different from all other known populations. Their DNA showed that they did not come from the same ancestors as modern indigenous South Americans, nor were they related to Clovis people from North America. They were an entirely different branch of humanity, one that broke off very early and went its own way. These Checua hunter-gatherers form what scientists call a basal lineage. This means they were one of the earliest branches from the first people to enter South America, but they did not mix with other groups later on. Their genetic signature didn't match the Anzic One child from Montana, who lived about 12,800 years ago and is often linked with the Clovis culture. It also didn't match people from the California Channel Islands, who migrated to the Andes around 4,200 years ago. Instead, the Checua people were like a separate tribe, an early group that entered the continent, settled in the Andes, and stayed isolated. Using complex DNA analysis tools like F3 and F4 statistics, scientists confirmed that the Chekwa group did not leave any known genetic traces in later South American populations. Their DNA is like a lost branch on the human family tree. So what was life like for these mysterious people? The Bogotá Altiplano 6,000 years ago was a land of wetlands, grasslands, and cold mountain air. Living at such a high altitude meant the Chekwa people had to adapt. Nights were cold, and the air had less oxygen, but they managed to survive. They hunted local animals, gathered starchy tubers and wild fruits, and probably used animal hides or woven baskets to carry food, since pottery hadn't been invented yet in the region. Their lifestyle was nomadic. They moved with the seasons, following the food. Their tools were simple, mostly stone and bone tools for cutting, scraping, and hunting. DNA from 7 individuals at Chekwa revealed some important social details too. 4 of the 7 were closely related and probably cousins or siblings. This means they lived in small, close-knit groups. 5 of them were men, all carrying the Y-DNA haplogroup Q1b1a, a genetic marker passed from father to son and common among Native American men. Their maternal DNA, passed from mothers, was more diverse, with haplogroups like B2, DA2, and C1, showing that women came from different families or groups. There was little sign of inbreeding, which tells us that they married outside their immediate families, a healthy practice even for a small group. But then, around 2,000 years ago, the Chekwa people disappeared. Their unique DNA vanished completely from the region. In their place, a new group arrived, people connected genetically to Central America. These people were part of what archaeologists call the Herrera culture, known for their use of pottery and farming. How do we know this was a full replacement, not just mixing? Researchers use techniques like admixture, which breaks DNA into ingredients to see ancestry, and QP wave, which tests whether 2 groups share the same past. Both methods showed that the new population had no DNA from the older Chekwa people. This means the Chekwa group was either wiped out, died off, or left the area without leaving descendants. What caused this? It could have been many things: climate changes that made food harder to find, diseases, or even competition with the new farming population. Farming and pottery allowed the Herrera people to store food, settle in one place, and support larger families. The older hunter-gatherers may not have been able to keep up. This discovery changes the way we understand the history of the Americas. The Chekwa people proved that there wasn't just one migration into South America. There were multiple waves, multiple groups, and some of them lived isolated lives for thousands of years before vanishing. Just like the ancient Beringians in Alaska or the Channel Islands people in California, the Chekwa people are part of a forgotten chapter in human history. Their story raises new questions. Were there other unknown groups like them? Could their descendants still exist in remote parts of the Amazon? Might we find traces of their genes in small, surviving tribes? Scientists hope that future studies, using more advanced tools like single-cell DNA sequencing and chemical analysis of bones, will help solve these puzzles. In the end, the Chekwa people remind us that the story of humanity is far more complex than we ever imagined. They lived, they adapted, and they left behind a hidden legacy, buried in the soil of the Andes and written in the language of DNA. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more hidden stories from history revealed through science, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with your friends. And let us know in the comments, what do you think happened to the Chekwa people? Could there be other lost lineages waiting to be discovered? See you in the next video.